Hey guys, so every year I write about what I learned during that year of training, how I can improve, and what are my goals for the next year. Alright, so let's begin. Let's start off with the most important thing I learned, which is about my diet. Basically, I tried to remove as much carcinogenic and inflammatory foods from my diet as much as possible. So stuff like fried food, sugar, salt, ice cream, butter, cheese, alcohol, basically all the processed and junk food. Most of these stuff are man-made, so by that definition, it's obviously not real food. Actually, most of the stuff that man-made are not just unhealthy food, but really now I believe that they should not even be called food at all. So once I realized that, avoiding these unnatural food become quite effortless and simple to me. There are actually very few man-made things that are neutral or healthy for us, like vinegar. Anyway, this has become my thought process in determining what to eat and what not to eat. So this helps to keep myself in check and make sure I'm only eating real foods. And if we don't have this healthy and unhealthy filter, anybody can literally put anything they want in our mouth just because it tastes good, no matter how carcinogenic or unhealthy it is. And even though I try my best to clean up my diet this year, I know that it's still not perfect because whenever I eat out, I have no idea what the chefs are putting into their food. Anyway, I'm just glad that this year I'm on the right track to become slightly more healthier than last year. So I'd say in terms of diet, there's a huge improvement for me. The benefits of eating cleaner with regards to training is the less inflammatory foods and the more antioxidants you eat. There's less oxidation and DNA damage in your body, so you can recover faster, and so over time that should mean that your fitness should improve quicker. Alright, on the same line about diet, I also learned a bit more about during exercise nutrition. So I learned that all these bars and gels are not as healthy as we think. In fact, they are one of the most processed foods that we can eat, and yet they market it as being healthy, and that's what athletes eat. But in fact, natural foods like bananas and dates have the same nutritional content as gels and exercise nutrition products, and obviously they are way healthier than these processed stuff, and most of the time they are also way cheaper. And I did a comparison with regular gels versus date syrup, so you can watch that video later if you're interested. Alright, I also found out that we need about 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates every hour that we exercise. So in terms of actual food, my nutrition plan is to take 1 gel equivalent of date syrup every 30 minutes from 1 hour onwards. Because if your workout is 1.5 hours, you basically don't really need additional carbohydrates because you can use whatever your body has installed already. So if you're interested in a more detailed exercise nutrition plan, you can check out my date syrup versus regular gels comparison video. Next thing I learned about exercise nutrition is the diminishing returns of when you eat your post-recovery meal. So 1 minute after a workout is better than 30 minutes after, which is better than 2 hours after your workout. Next year, I want to get into a habit of bringing my post-workout nutrition during my exercise. So immediately after I finish a workout, I can refuel as soon as possible. Alright, so let's talk about what I learned for running this year. So I really feel like I need to start increasing my mileage more next year. I suspect that it could be what's holding me back from getting fitter. Most runners say that you get competitive around 40 to 60 miles a week, and I'm not even doing that in kilometers. I'm doing like 30 to 40 km a week. But as you know, building mileage is a slow and gradual process, and I can't just simply run 60 km in a week. I tried that this year, but I had to take a few days off training after that. Yeah, so 60 kilometers a week isn't a sustainable mileage yet for me. And remember, that's on top of my swimming and cycling workouts as well. Alright, so my plan for next year is to slowly build my mileage from 40 to 60 kilometers a week. Alright, the next thing I learned is about periodization, and I learned a whole lot of things about periodization this year. And these are quite important things that I wish I knew when starting triathlon like 7 years ago. Alright, if you don't know what periodization is, it's basically how you plan your hard and easy sessions and weeks and months. So what I learned about periodization this year is that you should be doing strength sessions around 2 to 3 times during your off-season and base season, and the strength session tapers down to 1 session a week during your race season. And I also learned that during the off-season we shouldn't even be doing hard intervals on the bike and run at all. But so far I'm not sure about the swim. So basically all the intense sessions in the week are just strength sessions. Anyway, in the off-season, the swim, bike and run sessions should be unstructured and they're all easy sessions. Alright, so moving on to the off-season, the first season we normally have is the base season, and so for most athletes that's usually the first few months of the year, usually around January to at most April. We should only be doing strength sessions and lactate threshold sessions. I learned that VO2 max sessions should only be done during the build phase, which is 1 to 2 months before your race. Yeah, so that's basically what I learned about periodization this year, and I'm probably gonna make another video about how I'm gonna structure the whole of my training for next year. Subscribe for that. So this year I also learned a lot more about strength workouts. Just now I talked about when to do strength workouts, and so now I'm gonna talk about how I'm gonna change and start to do them a bit better. In 2019, my strength sessions were like all over the place and I completely didn't know what I was doing. So this year I had a little bit of an idea, and I learned that strength sessions are like more important than what most people think. And if we're gonna like skip out one session in a week, the strength session would be the last session to go. I learned that endurance athletes benefit way more from heavy weights and low reps instead of low weights and high reps. I also found out that the ideal rep range is from 4 to 10 reps, and a good weight should make you feel like you can just only put out one more rep. If you can go past 10 reps pretty easily, that means it's about time to increase your weight. So for me, I know that my 28 kg barbell is way too light for me and I need to think of a way to increase my squat weights. Another thing that I want to change next year is to start uploading my strength workouts to Strava so I can better gauge my total training hours for the week and track my improvements, if any. Okay, moving on. Another thing that I want to track next year is my HRV. So that's heart rate variability, and that's different from heart rate. Heart rate just measures the amount of beats per minute, but heart rate variability So heart rate variability measures the interval between pulses, and the more variable these intervals are, that means the less fatigued you are and you're ready to train again. So with this metric, it should tell me exactly how fatigued I am instead of just guessing based on feel. I'm really not sure how much we can trust this HRV metric, but I guess we'll see it next year. So still talking about heart rate, this year I got to find out what was my maximum heart rate, and it's not 220 minus the age. In fact, it's about 13 beats higher than that. I found out my maximum heart rate is 210, so that puts my zone 2 pace, which is 60 to 65% of my maximum heart rate, at 126 to 137 beats per minute. Alright, so with these two numbers, 126 and 137, that will be my lower and upper limit for my easy run. Lower than that, and I'm not getting the maximum stroke volume per heartbeat. And running higher than this upper limit means I am putting more effort to have the same amount of benefit. So there's no point in running more than 137 beats per minute for easy runs. So if you want to maximize the aerobic benefit of your easy runs with the least possible work, you ideally want to stick to 60 to 65 of your maximum heart rate. By the way, the maximum heart rate for cycling is different from running. Usually for me, I realize that my heart rate is 10 beats lower in cycling at the same effort for running. So if you're too lazy to do a maximum heart rate test for cycling, you can kind of gauge your maximum heart rate just by taking 10 beats below your maximum heart rate for running. And then from there you can gauge your zone 2 heart rate for cycling. For me, it's 116 to 127 beats per minute. Alright, moving on. The next thing I learned is that I really do quite bad in heat. I always knew that I don't do well in hot conditions, and now I think I realized that it might have hindered me more than I thought. I know that I sweat more than most people, and I'm not sure about this, I'm just speculating, but maybe that means my body isn't responding well to just a little bit of heat stress. That's why I'm sweating a bit more profusely. This year I learned that there are two non-exercise things that affect heart rate a lot, and those are dehydration and heat. So heat acclimatization is very important if you have a long race or a very hot race. And I've neglected heat acclimatization training since like forever, and so maybe next year I'll incorporate it into my easy rides and also do more sauna sessions at home. Alright, for swimming, sadly due to COVID, we couldn't swim for a majority of the year, and now when COVID is over, I don't feel like the motivation to swim more than once a week anymore. So I feel like my swim fitness is just maintaining, but if I want to improve next year, I better increase my swimming frequency to at least 2 or 3 times a week. Swimming just so happens to be my least favorite sport out of the three, so I'm also guilty of falling into the trap of putting the least amount of time in the sport. Some people could improve their swimming just with 2 sessions a week, but for most people, swimming 2 sessions are just maintenance, and to improve usually is 3 sessions or more. Alright, the final thing that I want to change and improve next year is my recovery between intervals. I always thought that the fastest way to recover between intervals is to stay still, lower my heart rate as much as possible, but actually that couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually better to keep moving so that your body can clear the lactate faster for your body. So this year I've been just stopping my treadmill every time there's a rest break, but next year I'm gonna try and incorporate doing like a 6 km/h jog between my intervals instead. And hopefully this small change will help improve my quality of my intervals and make them feel a little bit easier. Alright, thank you guys for staying this far into the video. That's like the super condensed version of what I learned this year. So now these are my goals for 2021. So this year I managed to hit my goal of sub 18 minutes for the 5k, and maybe next year I'll aim for sub 17.5 minutes. I've also improved my functional threshold power on the bike to 237 watts, which is 4.2 watts per kg. So next year I'm aiming to hit 4.5 watts per kg. And for swimming, I aim to get my CSS pace, which is my threshold pace for swimming, down to 1 minute and 30 seconds per 100. Now it's like 8 seconds slower than that. Also, 2021 will be another SEA Games year again, so hopefully I'll get to go for more qualifying races and finally get to travel overseas after a year of staying home. So if you guys want, feel free to subscribe and join me in my progress of training towards the 2021 SEA Games. Alright, I'll see you guys again in the next video. Bye!